Hello everybody, my name is Brianna Bilo and I'm a meteorologist here with the National Weather Service office in Grand Junction, Colorado, and this is your Spring 2024 Seasonal Climate Summary. So to start off, we'll do a little recap of each of the individual stories of the month for meteorological spring, so that is March, April, and May. So kicking off, we have March's here, which was In Like a Lion. So the month of March, actually, it came in and went out like a lion this year, but specifically we came in with like a lion with an intense storm system that brought widespread rain and snow to eastern Utah and western Colorado, along with a very strong cold front that brought some significantly cooler temperatures. And ahead of this cold front, and actually with the cold front as well, we saw a strong upper level jet that brought widespread gusty winds to the area. Valley locations, including the Grand Valley, saw gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour. And we also had several reports of downed trees and power lines. I believe this is also the one where a couple of brush fires started in the Grand Junction area due to potentially sparking wires, or it could have been somebody throwing a cigarette out of a car window and the winds just fanned the flames, but those strong winds really did quite a number. The higher elevations themselves also saw gusts to nearly 80 mile per hour at times, and so here we have the graphic that we put out for this event. We had high wind warnings, wind advisories, winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings. I believe we even ended up having to do a couple of squall warnings with this system. It really was kind of just a whole lot all at once. It was a very impressive system, and it didn't quit throughout the whole month of March. We actually had multiple events like this. Moving into April, again, very similar setup where we had a very strong system with a very potent cold front that had very strong winds driving it. Moving through, but because we've moved into April now, it's a little bit warmer, there's less snow, and we saw blowing dust. So as I said, strong and gusty southwest winds ahead of an approaching low pressure system picked up a substantial amount of dust across northern Arizona, and you can actually see it. All of this yellow, it's kind of blurry, but all of this yellow stuff here is blowing dust being picked up out of northern Arizona and transported into southeastern Utah. This blowing dust reduced visibility across this area, and you can see that here through these images. This is a Utah Department of Transportation camera on US 163 in Monument Valley on April 5th. Visibility is definitely down to, I would expect at least a mile, maybe less. And then again, with the Utah State University campus camera in Monument Valley as well, again, you can see significantly reduced visibility. And we, in fact, had to issue dust storm warnings for this part of the world due to the continued blowing dust that we saw throughout the day. And then moving into May, this is not a traditional story of the month, at least in terms of weather, but space weather counts. So some of you, hopefully most of you, got to go out on the night of May 10th to the 11th and got to see the Aurora Borealis here in western Colorado. It was truly a unique event. We could even see it here at the airport. I was working midnight shift, so I went out and took a couple pictures with my phone, and they were nowhere near as spectacular as this, which was taken with a real actual camera and not on the brightly lit airport property. But I heard reports of people seeing it as far south as Key West, El Paso, Texas. Like, it was a very impressive event. This was actually this was the first time in 20 years that the Space Weather Prediction Center issued a watch for a potential G4 geomagnetic storm. And actually what ended up happening was a G5, which is the highest level of a geomagnetic storm that they have on their scale. The scale runs from G1 to G5. Typically what we see are G3s, maybe a G4 if you're lucky. And so, like, if you live in the northern tier of the US, so like the upper Midwest, maybe Maine, or you live in Canada or whatever, you see the Aurora Borealis with G2s, G3s. But the G5 storm that we had obviously created some very intense aurora that we're seeing all across the country, in fact, all across the world, at very low latitudes. And so this image was taken from Colorado National Monument, and it really showcases some of the spectacular skies that you got to see with this event. This was taken, I believe, around midnight. So for us here in the western half of the country, we really saw two peaks around midnight and then around 1 a.m. that evening. The East Coast got us one heck of a light show before the sunset for us. But this was actually taken by my housemate, Harrison Shapiro, and he gave us permission to use it because that's a pretty dang great picture if you ask me. Go follow him. He's a cool dude. Moving on, we'll do a recap of the weather. We have spring 2024. Our highest temperatures of the season, unsurprisingly, all happened in May. So our warmest temperature of the season was 93 degrees, and that was recorded in Grand Junction on the 29th. Our coolest high temperature was 73, recorded in Aspen, again on the 29th. As you can see, again, as I've stated before, we had all of these temperatures are clustered around a day or two, the 29th and the 28th of May, and that is because we had a very sudden warm up at the end of the month of May, because as you'll see in the monthly recap for the month of May, May was actually cooler than average, but the last week of the month was not, and that's where we saw these highest temperatures. And then looking at our coldest temperatures, the coldest low we saw was in Craig. It was 6 degrees, and that was recorded on the 9th of March. And our warmest low temperature was 25, recorded in Grand Junction on the 9th of March, and again on the 7th of April. And again, not quite the same level of clustering as we saw with the high temperatures, but you can definitely see that in the month of spring we had a cold snap around the 9th of March, and then again in early April around the 7th. Moving into precipitation, not the best news. Despite the unsettled nature of the month of spring, we actually did not see an overwhelming signal of near to above normal that you would have expected considering. But then again, these are just 10 sites out of our entire county warning area, which is very large. These are definitely not representative of some of our mountain zones, because the only two of these sites that are actually in mountain zones are Aspen and Aspen and Rifle, kind of Rifle. So understandably, some of our higher elevation zones, so Aspen and Rifle, did better. They saw some above normal precipitation departures. Montrose also, which is rather impressive. But then some of our lower elevations did not do as well. We had departures ranging from anywhere from 100th below normal, so Craig, right around normal for Craig, to almost 1.7 inches in Vernal. Vernal did not do well this season, unfortunately. Hopefully going into the summer and maybe potentially monsoon, we can see a bit of recovery, but definitely for the lower elevations, not the best season. But if you've been keeping up with the monthly climate videos, you'll know that our mountains did quite well, actually, accumulating snow well into the month of May, so throughout the entire spring season. Looking at the drought outlook for the summer, we have a few areas that already have moderate, so D1 drought, and that is this area in southwest Colorado and these two pockets along the Utah-Colorado border. And per this outlook, we're looking at drought persisting. And then we have a significant portion of the CWA that is in D0 or abnormally dry conditions, which for the purposes of the drought tendency does not count as drought. But we are looking at some of those areas that are in D0, looking at drought development. So much of the Four Corners, so southeast Utah, southwest Colorado, and some of the southern valleys are looking at potentially drought redeveloping in those areas. So taking the D0 that is already there and moving it towards D1, so moderate, potentially worse, depending on how the season goes. And then looking at our climate outlook, so temperatures and precipitation, you can kind of see why the drought tendency is the way that it is, as we are looking at a fairly significant above normal likelihood as far as temperatures are concerned. So this shading here is 50 to 60% chance of seeing above normal temperatures throughout the season. And then we are looking at a relatively slight tendency towards below normal precipitation. So this is 33 to 40% in the lighter shade and then 40 to 50% in the darker shade. So as far as the Climate Prediction Center is thinking we're not going to see a monsoon this year. They're thinking we're going to see high pressure, warm temperatures, below normal precipitation. So not the best news, but things can always change. At least we've seen sort of a continued unsettled pattern into the month of June, so there's still hope. We'll have to see. And that's it for your spring recap. Go check out the monthly videos. April and May have just gone up, and I'll see you again with the next seasonal recap in about 3 months. Have a good one, everybody.